I'm Anastasia Barnes, CEO and owner of High Profile Media Group. On each episode of Overlunch, I sit down with leaders in the New England AEC industry to discuss the journey that led them to their current position, the lessons they've learned, and what drives them to succeed. In this episode, I talk with Stephanie Clarke, Vice President of White Burke Real Estate Advisors in Burlington, Vermont. I first met Stephanie at White Burke's 9th Annual Vermont Development Conference in November of 2023. I was excited to sit down with her recently at Spot on the Dock in Burlington to talk more about her professional journey in real estate. During our conversation, she shares more about the skills and strengths that have contributed to her leadership style and success in the industry, the project she's most passionate about, and why she loves working in and around the Vermont communities that make this state such a unique place to live. Stephanie Clarke, the Vice President of White Burke. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you. So I would love to learn more about you. Were you born and raised in Vermont? Or?
I was not born and raised. I was actually born in Texas, Austin, Texas. And I was raised in Rhode Island. I moved there when I was 3. And then I came up to UVM for college, for undergrad, and refused to leave. And I just fell in love with Vermont. I fell in love with Burlington. And that's what brought me here, and it's why I choose to live here too, because I just fell in love with it. My family was in Rhode Island. All of my family was in Rhode Island until actually October, when my mom moved up here finally after 20 some odd years.
Nice.
She moved to get closer to me and my kids. So it has been a long time, but I choose Vermont.
I love that. That's almost like a slogan.
It
is. Choose Vermont.
It should be.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot actually, is that I call myself a chosen Vermonter because I choose to be here and I choose to here over anything else, here over closer to my family, here over other places that might be even more affordable, but because I love it here. Yeah. So I don't ever want anyone else who comes into Vermont to feel like they're outsiders. They should feel comfortable here, like we all are. We all are Vermonters.
Yeah,
so,
that's
how I feel about it.
You came here after college.
Yeah, I came here for college.
For college, rather.
Yep, and stayed after college. And the story is that I worked in college for a woman in my work study program in the Dean's Office of Arts and Sciences, and she put me in touch with her husband because I said I just wanted to stay in Vermont, and that is David White, who is the president of White Burke. And so I started 2 weeks after graduating undergrad at White Burke, and 18 years later, I'm still there, and I'm the vice president. Wow. He hired me because I could read, write, and think clearly. Yeah. Because I was a sociology major with a film and television studies minor. And I really thought I was going to go back for my master's in social work. That's what I thought I would do. And I said, I'll give you 2 years. I need experience in the field of something, and I want to stay in Burlington and figure out my next step. And he said, I'll give you 2 years as my research analyst, because he had never had a position like that before. And about 2 years in, I decided to do about 6 months to a year of service to in my spare time, some community service to learn more about social work. And so I did a volunteer gig at the battered women's shelter at the time, and tried to just see if social work would be the right fit for me. And I discovered how insanely hard direct service is, and how intensely emotional, and that kind of personal toll was something I really wasn't prepared for. And so while I was there, I was putting together a book for women in transition, and I discovered the MBA program at Champlain College. And that's what I chose to do after that, is to go back and get my MBA so that I could better serve my clients, that I was getting better at what I was doing and learning more about real estate and falling in love with it. And so I went back for my MBA there, and so many years later, I'm still there.
So you've been at White Burke for 18 years?
18
Is that
years,
right?
yep.
So you must love what you do, which means you love the industry.
Yes.
What do you love about it?
Yes. I think in Vermont specifically, it's really important to me that development is done right. Growing up in Rhode Island, love Rhode Island for certain reasons, but I find it overpopulated and overdeveloped, and it's just difficult when I would go back to visit my family to see all of the beauty and all the natural resources just usurped for the purposes of development. And I'm pro-development, but I think it needs to be purposefully done with a lot of intentionality, and I think Vermont does that so well. And I don't know a single developer, capital D or little d, that doesn't have really someone's best interest at heart. I mean, I'm sure there's some not great developers in the Vermont, but I don't know them. I really don't think there's these fat cat, big D developers that a lot of people are afraid of. I think a lot of them do this work for the right reason, and they do it, yes, to make a profit. That's part of a good reason in, you know, business and capitalism. But I think they're also doing it with the understanding that they're part of a bigger picture and part of a bigger community.
Right.
And so I love the industry because I love the communities. I don't love, you know, I'm not a construction person. I should say I'm not a construction person. I don't do, you know, construction design, or I don't get into design as much. I do a lot of conceptual plan, you know, that's always integrated into everything I do.
Sure.
But I'm not a construction manager. I don't love like brick and mortar necessarily, but I really love the process. I love the people. I love the outcomes. And so I went from like really a retail office institutional focus to a municipal focus in the last, maybe I'd been doing it for about 12 to 14 years, but in the last 5 years, really heavily, like almost all of my clients are municipalities.
And do you like that now?
I do. I love it so much. And since having my kids, I think that was one of the things that was really, that clicked in my head, was how much I really wanted to make more of an impact in these communities. And thinking about the water system I'm building in Killington, that's going to make a transformational difference for these many, many businesses that have water in wells that are contaminated, and they have to spend massive amounts of money to remediate the water and to clean the water, to filter it so that it can be used. And then those expenses can't, I mean, these aren't people that are, you know, sitting on a pile of cash. That those expenses have to get passed through to the business, to the customers. And there's local residents there beyond there's the second homeowners and the tourists and all that, but there's people that live there, and there's people in Rutland who live there and need to live and work. And by bringing water down Killington Road, which is one of my biggest projects, and it's a, you know, $47 million project just for the first phase, 80 to 90 million long term to do the water in the road there, is going to make a huge county-wide impact. Because down in Rutland is where the workers are living mostly. They're going to have a big benefit from this, because now we're going to have a property that's got access to water where they can do workforce and affordable housing. So just all of these pieces, like every day when I'm on a phone call about one particular easement, I know that is one, you know, it's like Lincoln Logs when I played them as a kid. You know, it's one Lincoln Log at a time to build your house. And
it's so,
so to watch that,
people you don't even know.
I never, and I never get to see a lot of the benefit, which is a little bit of the biggest challenge of my role, particularly, is just how downstream, how upstream I am, how downstream that is. But it's worth it. It is worth it, because I'm hoping that I'll be able to make, you know, I do make a difference in this state that my kids will hopefully grow up in and come back to if they go away and come back. And, you know, my friends' kids and my friends, you know, I want them to be able to live and work and play in these communities that are, some are really struggling. You know?
Absolutely.
So that's why I love it.
What would you say you're proud of about the industry?
And
I love your perspective too, because you know, I know more of the AEC side than the real estate folks, so I would really, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and I'd say, I'll give two answers, which is one that's like local to Vermont and one that's national. Nationally, I'm seeing some good trends around equity and raising the level of attention and importance of any kind of diversity. I mean, so, you know, any kind of way to make people feel more access to this industry. And some of that starts at the really young level. So I know of national programs that are working really hard to get, you know, elementary school, middle school, high schoolers to know about this industry. I mean, people don't know that this is a field you can enter. And so if you don't have even the clue about it, how will you ever find your path there? So even, you know, middle schoolers learning what a landscape architect is and things like that is important. And I think we're seeing more trending toward that, of being a more inclusive industry, because it's been historically a very, very exclusive industry. So I think nationally, I'm proud of that. I'm trying to be positive, because I'm proud of that. We're moving in the right direction, but it's slow. It's slow, and I think we could do a better job. But in the state of Vermont, I am just the most proud of the fact that we are all hands on deck for housing right now. That is the thing that everybody seems to get, and no one's, well, people are fighting it, but they're not the people in the industry. They're the people who are not in my backyard. And they don't want to see that in their community or in their neighborhood, especially anything that has, you know, not market rate housing, and that's upsetting. And so you know, these folks that roll up the the ladder behind them, and they've moved here, and this is what they came to move to and expect, and they want it to never change.
Right.
And those folks I really take issue with, and I see our industry really trying to work with communities and really try to bring people along, and you know, try to educate folks that, like, you know, we really need this rising tide to float all boats right now.
Sure.
So I think it's all hands on deck, and I think a lot of companies are doing a really great job of that. So I'm proud to be part of that. Yeah.
Do you think there's a particular lesson that has stuck with you throughout the years so far in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that both David, the president of our company, has taught me, and something that my Champlain MBA taught me, was the importance of reflection and iteration. So I always say that something that I've just kind of had to learn as a skill and hone as an instinct is like a GPS recalculating. You have to iterate. You have to iterate, and that's life, right? Like, that's not just in my business, but in planning and for anything. You have to be ready to be adapt. And so David had actually gone to Goddard for his undergrad, and he had the experience of reflection on everything. And at Champlain, you wouldn't think that an MBA program would ask you to reflect weekly on the lessons that you learn, like managerial accounting. Why am I reflecting on this? But you had to write a piece every week. And it really instilled this thing for me about how important it is to take a moment, reflect. Is this working? Is it what's not working? Iterate.
Okay.
And that's
so
kind
you
of been,
apply that.
I do throughout everything, especially when I'm with my clients, especially with my family.
Yeah.
As the mother of small children, that's essential.
What would you tell your daughter or your son if they wanted to enter real estate or even construction? Is there something that you would say?
You got to be scrappy.
Yeah. Oh,
learn to be scrappy, and learn to be scrappy now.
Yeah.
As a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, they kind of are. They find their way through to their goal.
Absolutely.
Without hesitation.
That's interesting.
And so it's interesting because I feel like that changes when we get older. We're taught to ask less questions. We're taught through education and through other socialization, ask less questions, you know. There's a certain limit that kids learn, and so you have to kind of relearn that skill as an adult. But being scrappy is, I think, the #1 thing you have to do in this industry. Yeah.
What is your leadership style? I would love to know.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of like leadership programs, and what I loved about some of the leadership programs I did, one in particular called Leadership Champlain through the Chamber, is that it didn't tell you how to lead, and it didn't really go through, you know, the standardized test or something that would tell you what is your leadership style. You're a red leadership style or something. It was more about discovering who you are and what are some of your strengths. Like, I love any of those, like Strengths Finder, Enneagram, or Myers-Briggs. I'm an ESFJ, you know, and I'm a 2, and I'm, you know, all these Strengths Finders, and I love that stuff. And I think that's what really builds leadership style is reflection. Like I said, going back to that, is knowing who you are and being comfortable with that, because it brings down any walls and defensiveness. And I think leaders cannot be defensive, strategically defensive, but not innately defensive.
Yeah.
And so being able to be comfortable to say, I don't know, or I was wrong, or I'm sorry, those are all important leadership skills. But I would say leadership style wise, I think I lead with humor. I think I lead with gratitude, and I think I lead with being scrappy. I think that really does come back to it as part of my leadership style, because I'm never afraid to either go after it or huddle up and change the course real quick, you know, and get everyone involved to pivot real fast. And that's not easy for every team to do,
right.
But with the right leadership style, you can get people to move quickly, and it depends on the team. But I've had a lot of success with that. And I think, you know, the gratitude piece, because if you don't somehow found it in gratitude, it loses authenticity.
Right.
It totally does. Whether you're leading a committee or a team or a troop or anything, you have to have that kind of authenticity, because it builds that confidence in you as a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you love about your job the most? Did I already ask you that?
I don't think particularly in that way. you know, what I love the most is the teams. I mean, I love the teams. I love seeing the creativity. I love using people for what they're strongest at. Or, you know, when someone says, we need to do this, what do you think we need? And I'm like, oh, we need an attorney. And I look at my list and I'm like, ooh, I love working with him. I'm going to grab him. Or I love working with this female engineer. I'm going to grab her, you know, and just really rolling with putting together an A team. That always feels really good. And being able to deliver on that, and then having a client come back to me and be like, he is awesome, or, you know, I love working with her. Thank you so much for sending her our way. And I love that stuff. I love networking. I love putting people together. One of the ways you and I met, or the way you and I met, was through the conference, and that's one of the things we do every year. It was our brainchild to bring together all of the development community, and this will be our 10th conference.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I came up with that speed networking idea, where it's like, you know, really getting people to talk. And I think that's one of the things that I love to do anyway, because I love talking with people and learning about them. But I find it's just so important, because if you're doing work with somebody and you don't know anything about them and you can't connect with them on anything, I don't want to work like that. Like, I just think trust is so important, and really connecting with someone. I want to know your kids. I want to know what you're interested in doing on the weekends. I want to know, you know, tell me more about your dog or your home renovation, because that's the good stuff. And, you know, we're all trying to work and live and play in these communities, and let's do that with each other.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come here, have lunch with me. It was so wonderful to get to know you, and you inspire me.